if you read the indications from the Kiev press, from the Helsinki press, and from the Baltics, something seems to be going on in that he is preparing for a confrontational on-off, hot-cold provocation incidents, false flag incidents, right up and down the border, right up to the Arctic, because of the establishment of these enormous bases, 3, 4, or 5, right along the inner Russian border, facing off the Baltics and facing off Finland, and right up, as I say, right up to the Arctic. What he is saying to the Russian people is, we are a civilization at war, and this is a battle for survival. The tactical battleground, that is all Ukraine is reduced to now, and he knows he can't conquer it unless he provokes, and he risks, if he goes for all-out conquest, an all-out war with Europe. And what does the US and what do the UK, very interesting question, do in those circumstances? I'm always saying, we're in very volatile times, and there's a big shakedown happening. And I think that this is what inadvertently this strange bromance between Putin and Trump have contrived at. We're going to see a new NATO. We're going to see a NATO bis, as the Italians would say, not as strong, probably bifurcated. We will see a NATO North and South, which the Anglo-Saxon English language commentariat is not talking about nearly enough. I think a lot of the American assets, such that remain, will be moved south, will be based in and around the wider Naples area. They will stay. Of course, they will keep Ramstein, but the focus will be the hub for Eurafrica, because the Euro Corps is being folded down. And by that, I mean the Euro Command of the US, the ground command, and it's been folded into the Africa Com, which has operated out of all kinds of different bases. They've moved their hubs several times, as far as I can make out, over the past decade or two. And it makes actually bases curiously like Naples, Augusta, Taranto much more interesting and much more important, because Hegseth and Colby, the deputy defense secretary, have made it clear that America's imperative in Europe is far more to the southeast. They still see, as we have seen for various reasons, personal and public, the Middle East as being vital. And you hold a lot of the Middle East from the northwest, from the Mediterranean, and you will have a presence in the Pacific, and we know what else you have to concentrate on in the Pacific. Big changes coming, and I see we're going to see Naples becoming more important. Turkey will become more important, and a big question, if you reduce your ground footprint in Europe, a huge cutback qualitatively, the biggest since 1945, since the armistice and then the surrender of Nazi Germany. How much can you claim operationally on the ground to command the show? And does that mean America gives up its command of NATO and hands over the Supreme Allied Commander's position? That is one of the big agenda items. They may bat it away. There may be a compromise. We don't know, because we're in the second 100 days of Trump. And as has happened before, personnel are changing and advisors are changing, and advice and counsel is changing.
Well, bringing it back to what is going on at the moment in Europe and Turkey, there is this meeting going on of Ukrainian and Russian delegates. Is there anything we should expect to happen or expect to come out of that meeting?
There will be messages passed, but I would say over the weekend, watch the websites, and what you've said earlier is so interesting and so important. It's the hard man, soft man. We will get the lunatic rhetoric that, fundamentals, we're under attack, the 2022, the root causes of our conflict, which just didn't start in 2022 or 2014 as far as Ukraine. It goes back to actually 1989. And the fall of the Berlin Wall, and then 1991, the dissolution of the Soviet Union and the communist regime in Russia. And you will get a maximalist declaration on one hand, and you will get this fiddling and finagling, and some very nasty attacks, because the pressure on Ukraine will be on the civilian population and the infrastructure, and that will go on. And they will try and prosecute that. There will be a lot of bloodshed, which is ridiculous. The amount that Russia is losing in conventional warfare terms, and they're trying to desperately outflank the advantage that Ukrainians have in drone and remote warfare. And that is pari passu at the moment, because the Russian scale of innovation is very considerable, that they've learnt a lot of new tricks. They've learnt how to use fiber optics. The drone warfare changes, as we know, in weeks. And when you look at procurement processes, particularly in the US, but above all in the UK, it's just simply absurd. It's not appropriate to the modern threat scenario, nor modern warfare. And as I said, and that has changed shockingly and surprisingly again in the past 6 weeks, in the way that an enormous black swan turned out to be in 2023 the arrival of the Houthis, and say we can choke off a choke point by unconventional means. What we have seen, if I could just drill into that, is immense sophistication now with really cheap drone warfare, and the one form of mass drones that you create within 4 or 5 weeks completely outdated, because they get the codes, they get the frequencies, they can jam them. Doesn't mean to say that the propulsion of the drones nor the cameras, that's what you have to rescue. You do the thing again. The other thing is the sea drone, which we have seen the sea drones remotely launched using adapted sidewinders. Blimey, I was seeing sidewinders fired in the Falklands campaign, but very skillfully adapted, downing 2 Russian aircraft, strike aircraft. That is new. And the other is what happened in India, Pakistan, or across the line of control. The French have made enormous inroads in selling Rafale, particularly, and a whole lot of other kit to India. Huge economy, huge population, largest country in the world. And blimey, 2, at least 3, possibly 5 have been downed by either combat aircraft, the J-35, Chinese, and Chinese-designed air defences. And so the Rafale, Dassault, have had to go back to the drawing board. For those who really follow these things, we're seeing the thing in the Generation 6 development. We've got Gen 6 development in the US, and the very successful GCAP Tempest, UK, Japan, Italy, whose main rival had been challenged by both of them, had been the FCAS, led by Airbus and Dassault, principally Germany, France, also Spain, and others. Now that has all changed, because what Dassault has to concentrate on is making the next generation of Rafale work, because it's new aircraft carrier, enormously costly project in prospect, a 12 billion euro project, probably that they can't afford, is based on the Rafale. So you have those 3 elements, as I said, this absolutely sort of outflanking movement on drone warfare, and the use of tactical and operational drones to an extraordinary degree, the use of sea drones where there's an advantage, and that is where Britain does come in. Britain is a bit of a leader there, and there's no doubt about it. They've been advising the Ukrainian Navy, and the Ukrainian Navy is winning a naval war without deploying warships, which is fantastic. And the limitations to conventional airstrike warfare in across Kashmir into both main territories, but particularly Pakistan. And the thing is, there has to be a rethink there. And all that has happened within a space of about 4 or 5 weeks.
Has Putin run out of road on the talks there then, or is this exactly where the Kremlin wanted the US president to be?
As we've always said, that Putin is playing mind games, and he would regard himself as playing it very successfully there. He thinks that he can play the hard man, soft man, the man of peace, the man of war, because as we have heard these indications that Trump's saying it's him and me and only we can do it, and Europe isn't holding its breath on that one. I think people like Radek Sikorski the extremely articulate foreign minister of Poland, is pretty aware and pretty wary about this. And so too also in Turkey, of course, Volodymyr Zelensky. He is very worried indeed, and he has actually put out on his personal X account that the renewed, the regenerated Russian summer offensive is on its way again, as of this morning, Lewis, that we are speaking, and that is Friday, Friday the 16th of May. And I do think we have to time locate it. Trump, I think, will oversell it. I think he will be desperate to see Putin. He, for his own stability with his allies and credibility in the wider world, Europe has come to bite him in the ankle, if not the backside. He has got to get this meeting or the agreement, and it can't be done by in-betweens. He's got to do it before the 24th of June, before the NATO summit. And that's where, run down to your bookies, and I would say long odds, no, they're not going to make it. Because Putin will pull out again. It's very interesting, the Putin position at the moment, and that's what we have to concentrate on.
Well, as all of this goes on the world stage, of course, the war continues in Ukraine. You mentioned when we started this conversation, there is this threat of a new offensive starting. What do we know about that, and how worried should we be about it suddenly making advances?
Funny enough, I think we should be less worried about what we're seeing most obviously. There was this extraordinary thing, the ceremonial brigade, after the grand, which they managed to do this time, the grand May the 9th victory parade, goes off to the Kursk and South sector. Yes, well, I mean, what's all this about? They're losing a lot of vehicles, by the way. It's not just tanks and artillery pieces, but it's actually trucks and jeeps and things like that. So they're using motorbikes. Would you believe it? But it's what I call the daft stuff that really worries me. That is, the veiled nuclear threat, and we may do something daft and dirty. And goodness knows what is going on there, but it is ominous. The way, by accident design, I don't think it was by design, by accident, that the shield has been broken on the reactor at Chernobyl. And it's that kind of thing where they could do something crazy, that that they're moving up tactical nuclear weapons into Belarus, and some idiot could fire the things. It is looking very, very volatile. And curiously, just a thought, think of what happened with Prigozhin and Wagner. What happens if discipline really breaks down? And there are signs that things, are changing. The way Kadyrov, the Chechen leader, has stepped. Well, he's not very well, by the way. But Putin himself, for his personal protection and so on, a lot of had relied on the Chechen brigades. They'd been there very prominently initially in 2022. And there's a general acceptance, which I think is hugely dangerous, that Putin can put 1.5 million underarms and keep them continuously so right across the piece. I mean, not on the front. They've got about 600,000 committed to the front, in depth, back into Russia on the Ukraine campaign. But if you're going to have stood up for offensive purposes, in other words, called up 1.5 million, quite apart from the normal conscription for internal security and the interior ministry forces and so on, that is dangerous, because that could pose a threat to you. So the war is not over. We're in the house of war still, unfortunately, but it's a very changing geopolitical, militaro-political map of Europe we're looking at, even compared with the last time you and I spoke.
Thank you for watching Frontline for Times Radio. For more on the war in Ukraine, you can sign up for membership at the link below or subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can also listen to the latest news and analysis on Times Radio or read it on thetimes.com. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.